Welcome to the Moms I Know with Sheila Walsh-Denton and Maria Anderson Farner. Two moms on a mission to reclaim childhood and take you from surviving to thriving on your parenting journey.
The best thing parents can do is to teach their children to love challenges, be intrigued by mistakes, enjoy effort, and keep on learning. By Carol S. Dweck, the author of Mindset.
Hi, this is Sheila,
And this is Maria,
and we want to welcome you to
the Moms I Know.
So today we are talking about mindset, and Carol Dweck is probably one of the foremost leaders of thought leaders in talking about mindset. She's from Stanford, and she has a great book called Mindset. And it's really that, it's such an important lesson for parents, for adults, but what a great lesson that we can teach our children, that they do not have to be it all the time. They don't have to be the number one. It's the process where the magic is. But yet we are in a society that doesn't really emphasize that.
No, I think our society really emphasizes the super kid, the super mom, the super family. And this whole concept of a growth mindset is so important. And I've seen this over and over. And I think, when we look back at our own childhood, we were given grades for effort. We were given praise for what we already possessed. There were the smart kids, there were the kids that struggled, there were, so I like this. It's a little bit more of the nurture versus nature, because we really can foster this idea of a growth mindset.
Yeah, where we can look at their effort, their perseverance, and give them credit for that, and give them, and maybe not even that credit thing, because that's the piece that I'm trying to get away from, is trying to get away from praising children for every little thing they do. I had read books earlier in parenting, and I forget who the authors were, but it's like, don't tell a girl that she's pretty, don't always say good job and everything, because then they're going to expect it. And it's going to be this external motivation rather than an internal, intrinsic motivation. And what we want our children to feel is we want them to feel it from the inside.
Yes, and there's the sort of the praise myth that praise is always a positive thing. And of course, our children, they do need us to acknowledge them, and we need to fill them up, but we need to fill them up, like you said, for their effort, not for their intrinsic qualities. And so there's a great quote about this impact of praise on our mindset.
Yeah, and so the vast majority of children love praise and respond well to it. It's an important element of our teaching to support and encourage children, and that's why praise is used. However, it can also reinforce that we expect them to do well, to be perfect, and always succeed. And when they don't, then they come up less than. And so that is a problem. And it's also, I see this when your kids are, say, acting out, and they're in that behavior that is not desirable, and you're just like, I can't deal with it. Close the door, get away from them. Sometimes we have to do self-preservation. Sometimes there's that necessity. But if we are to look at it like, hold them, hug them through the good, the bad, the ugly, then they know that they are fully accepted and fully valued. And it's not that they have not reached that bar. It's just they have not reached it yet. So if we can say, it's not that you can't do it, it's just you can't do it yet. And I just think that's so, there's a lot of wisdom there.
Yeah, there sure is. I've seen so many children who, when they've been given praise for what they can do naturally, they're a great athlete, or they're musically inclined, or they're mathematical geniuses, when things get tough, then they haven't built that muscle. They haven't built that perseverance kind of muscle. And so they give up so easily. And I certainly can relate to that. And there's things that, I wasn't good at, so I wasn't going to try, because if I try and fail, then I'm not that A student anymore. Or I'm not that, the smart one, or however.
You lose face a little bit. And so that happens for adults as well. I mean, sometimes my kids are asking me to do things, and I'm like, I can't do that. But then I'm like, wait, what am I showing them if I'm not even trying? So I have to try. As parents, we have to role model that as well.
Well, and our children actually love seeing us, fail at things and when we can't do things. And so, But when we model that we're trying new things, we're persevering. And I know, Sheila, you and I have talked about this before, but your oldest child has always struck me as one who perseveres through everything. And I just have so admired that quality in him. And they say that in life, 95% of success is really that perseverance, that not giving up. And so when we can raise our children to have that depth of wanting to do something because it's a challenge, wanting to do something because it is something that they may not already know how to do and they want to figure it out. And so I think of all these types of things where we can foster that with puzzles and with different types of problem solving things. And I was always one of those people that you hand me a Rubik's Cube and I'm not even going to try because I know it's going to be so hard and I'm going to give up. So I would have really benefited from this idea of growth mindset. And this whole idea that when we praise our children for their looks or for their natural talent, also, they're not going to value that as highly because it's kind of like, well, yeah, I know that. And so it's empty praise. And so when we can praise children for that perseverance, I really see that you're working hard on that. I appreciate the fact that you are working through this struggle. I see that you're having to do that several times and you're going to get that, whether it's a cartwheel in gymnastics or it's a math problem or something that they're struggling with, in terms of a painting or a drawing. And so we can really give them that feedback that is not about, oh, I love that, it's so pretty, or I appreciate your writing, but that you're giving them valid feedback. I see that you're working through this. I see that you've persevered through this. And so there's so many different ways that we can foster that.
Yeah, I want to give some examples. This is my daughter's school, actually, their theme this year is growth mindset. And I was just like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I've read, because I've read the work of Dweck before. And so in developing a growth mindset, instead of thinking, I'm not good at this, try thinking, well, what am I missing? Okay. Instead of saying, I give up, well, I'll use a different strategy. Is there another way to get at this? It's good enough. Is this really my best work? So these are just these questions. I can't make this any better. I can always improve. Instead of, this is too hard. This might take some time. So often kids want that easy grade, or if it's not easy, then it's not worth it. And I remember there was a child in my children's lives who didn't want to try anything. And it was because he knew that it wasn't good enough, because it was something new. And so if we were able to take this back a little bit and just experience, like really emphasize the experience and the process, I think it would be so much better for our children. Another example, I made a mistake. Well, mistakes help me to learn. And one thing, like I say on my own side note, is just, it's a practice. We all have to practice, and it's like, you're not going to be good at anything unless you practice, because I think our kids see so many, or you hear the big stuff, the people that are so successful in certain things. Well, they didn't get there without practice.
That's so true. And when you look at successful writers or successful athletes or successful artists, they have failed over and over and over again. And so this idea of persevering, of never giving up, of continuing on, there's so many wonderful stories about people who have persevered through adversity. We become who we are through that struggle. And I mean, the classic example is the diamond, who, through all of that pressure and all of that struggle, becomes the diamond.
Right, exactly. And I think of, there's this, I don't know if it's a meme or whatever, but it's just like, tells when people got success. It's like J.K. Rowling, for example. I think she was like 41 or something, single mom, 2 small kids, and she was, how many times was she denied for Harry Potter? That door slammed in her face. So many successful actresses and writers, like you said, did not see success immediately. Right. And that's what we need to emphasize.
Yeah. The athlete who practices that throw or that catch over and over and over and over again. Right. And it's not that they have that natural talent, it's that they have persevered, that they have practiced so often that it looks effortless, but it really comes with a lot of that work.
Yeah. So how can we bring this into our families? How can we bring this, I think the first part is the consciousness, the awareness of the growth mindset. Instead of, plan A didn't work, well, there's always a plan B. One thing I always say to my kids, another thing is, everything is figure-outable.
I like that.
And that's from Marie Forleo, B School. And it's just like, And so I use that in my business, but yet it's also a very good parenting strategy that everything is figure outable. Even when you feel like it's not, it is.
Well, we start when they're small. I mean, even as infants, and they start to walk, and they're climbing things, and we have to let them climb. We have to let them make those challenges and figure out their body and figure out all the things they're doing, and we have to let them practice that success. And of course, we give them feedback. We say, great job, or we hug them and we love them and we give them that feedback, but we're praising their effort. We're praising their working through those things. And so, as infants and toddlers, we can give them that feedback. And then as they get older, there's that language. We have to really pay attention to what we're saying. And so often the first thing that comes out of our mouth is that statement about who they are instead of what they're doing. So I remember years ago, it was when I was working in the classroom, and there was an article called The Praise Paradox. And it really showed that when we use our words a little less consciously, we're really just reinforcing who they already are instead of that growth mindset. And so we can just take that moment. And so these questions that these statements, and you've turned them into these other ones, I think those are really, really powerful. And so just when we are giving our children feedback, we have to think about, how are we doing this? What are we saying? And, I think back to how, of course, I said things all the time that might have not been the most encouraging. And so we have to really think about where we are coming from when we're saying those things, but also the modeling, like you said.
And it's a practice. You know what I mean? I mean, there's definitely things, that I've said that I'm not so proud of, but that's life. Yeah. But the other thing that when we bring talking about smaller children, is separating them from their behavior. Like, you never want to tell your child, like, that's a bad boy, or you're a bad girl, or something like that. It's like, that behavior is not the best. That behavior is not what I'm expecting from you, type thing. And so you emphasize their behavior. And that's one thing I really tried to emphasize with my kids, because I think, and if they hear bad, or or you're a troublemaker, or all these things, it sets them up. And it's like, who's going to come up, who's going to be successful when they have been told their whole life that they're not good.
Right. And when we look at, there's so many adults that are walking around with the wounds from childhood, with, parents or adults in their life telling them statements like that were negative, instead of focusing on the positive, or saying, just like you said, about the behavior was not acceptable, or that they were not acknowledged for what they were doing well, but just always being looked at for the things that they weren't doing well. And so I think that that's really important. I did also want to add that, of course I tell my kids they're gorgeous, they're handsome, they're fabulous. They, I love that outfit, but, really tempering it with and I love this piece of writing that you did because it makes me feel like this, or because I see that you are working on this. And so we really have to just be conscious about all of those types of things.
It's just, when you were just bringing that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's conscious parenting. That's Dr. Shefali Saberi, author of The Conscious Parent and The Awakened Family. And we definitely will use a podcast talking about her, because I have done a few workshops with her. And, it's just that she got into her business of conscious parenting because, as a psychologist, she was seeing people were coming into her office, and what were they talking about? Childhood wounds. And so we have to revolutionize. We have to radically change how we are doing childhood. And like Marianne Williamson, she said the exact same quote. It's just like, if we want to change the world, we have to change how we raise our children. And so, and this is a huge piece of it, growth mindset. And I want to give a practical recommendation to a company that has taken the work of Carol Dweck and has made it accessible, and it's called Big Life Journal. You can find it at biglifejournal.com, and it's probably about a year or two old, but I gave my daughter last year for Christmas Big Life Journal, and it's really been helpful in her to just her own practice.
It's such a beautiful example of something concrete that you can give your, kind of elementary school age child. I'd love to read this quote from the back. Okay, so this is sort of their, a child could put this poster up in their room and read this and refer to it. And so it says, I have a growth mindset. I am in charge of how smart I am because I can grow my brain like a muscle by learning hard things. I can achieve anything with effort and right strategies. And even if I fail or make a mistake, it is a great thing because I can learn from them and I get better. What a wonderful message to be giving our children. And I love that this Big Life Journal has topics that they address. So the topics are: make a difference in the world, dream big, follow your heart, you are not what you have, believe in yourself, take action, be persistent, effort is key, love learning, be mindful, be grateful, failure is learning, be positive. These are just like life lessons right here. And if we're working with our young children with these topics, they can't help but have this be a part of who they are. And I just think, oh my gosh, if every adult had this when we were younger.
Well, I love the failure is learning, because there's a commencement speech by Pema Chodron, and it's a book. It's now in like a little book, and it's called Fail Again Better. And I've given it to my children, my older ones, and I said, you need to read this within the next year, because I got it for kind of a family gift for Christmas. And I'll be honest, they have not read it yet. I have read it, and Brent has read it, but it's the same thing. It's just like, you fail, but use those as our lessons, right? Use that as your, how are you going to change it? How are you going to look at this differently?
Well, anytime we have these big life lessons, I've tried to help my children understand, like, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? And so, as adults, we go, okay, so something happens, and, we make a huge mistake, or we embarrass ourselves, or something happens, or even just the tragedies that happen in our lives. And it's like, okay, what is this here to teach me? What am I supposed to learn from this? And so if we can help our children see that we're doing that with the challenges that come to us, and then we're helping them, it's like, yeah, I mean, especially with the teenagers, they come home and there's so much drama about something that, as adults we might think is rather small, and yet to them it's enormous. And so we can listen to them, and then we can say, okay, so, and what are we going to learn from this? Or what is the lesson here for us? It's really important to be looking at all of these types of things. So I love that your daughter's school is really focusing on this at this level.
It's a K through 8, and you see in some of the classrooms there's yet, so you haven't got that math concept yet, but you will. And I'm just overjoyed that her school is doing this.
Right. And I think in our society now, especially with social media, the Instagram, the perfection everywhere, we see so much of what is, just fabulous, or all of these amazing things that people are doing. And we tend to judge ourselves or compare ourselves. And there's a wonderful quote, and it's kind of, a lot of people have said this, but comparison is the thief of joy. And so we can take this and really help our children understand that, of course, they're not going to be perfect at everything right away. They're not going to be the best at this or that. And that we all have our gifts. One of the teachers at the school that I used to have, she had a poster that said, all children are gifted. Some just open their packages later. And I always laughed at that.
I love that. Because that's truth.
It's so true. We all have our gifts. And the gifts are different too. We open our packages later, and also the gifts are different, and how we need to honor children for the gifts that they have, that they naturally come in with, and say, look at the talents that you have. And this is an area that you may have to work a little harder. This is something that doesn't come naturally to you. And, this did not come naturally to me, but I worked hard and I persevered through this.
And we've really seen that with both of us, seeing so many students throughout our lives, and so many children, and seeing that it all equals out. You know what I mean? Oh. Everybody has a gift.
Yes.
And it's just like you said, I love that, getting the package.
And if we could help parents really understand that, I mean, I think it was Margaret Mead who said, until she had children, she could be objective about all children. But then when she had her own, and I'm not quoting this verbatim, but then you start comparing. But of course, we want to look at helping them to build on their strengths and then work on those other areas as they come in. And so
the practice.
And it's a lifelong lesson. And I always say to families, do you want them to be an early reader or a lifelong reader? Do you want them to be a whiz at mathematics as a toddler, or do you want them to persevere through these building blocks as they go? And so I think that if we can help, young parents understand that it all kind of evens out, and, their child might be really quick at this, but then they might be slower at this or another one. They're all different, and usually by about 9, 10, 11, it kind of evens out. And I've also seen kids that have struggled throughout and then soar ahead, and other ones that sort of tap out because they're told so often that they're so bright. And then when things start to get hard, they don't have that muscle to keep persevering. So,
and that's
we have
the
seen
muscle,
it all.
right? Yeah.
Right.
Wow, what a great topic. I loved it.
Yeah.
So a lot of good resources, and thank you for joining us this morning.
We hope that you cultivate that growth mindset with yourself and with your children, and we'll talk to you next time on
The Moms I Know.
Thanks for joining us today for The Moms I Know. To learn more about Sheila and her online program, The Mom Map, visit purplebeetnutrition.com. For Maria's monthly blog and to learn more about her group programs and retreats, visit soquelessentials.com. That's SOQUEL essentials.com. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Moms I Know. Until next week, have a joyful family journey.